This is question 9 from the week 9 engineering quizzes, and I've been asked to go through this example of calculating EAC. I think it's a good example of how to calculate NPV, which is the first step in calculating your EAC, and so I'm going to work through this one. I also tried to do it on iPad like I have in the other videos, but it got extremely messy very fast, so I've decided to do this on the PC and using Excel. So the question says that a commercial vehicle was purchased for an acquisition cost of $300,000. The operating and maintenance costs and trade-in values are given in the table. And we're trying to calculate the lowest cost of ownership and the equivalent annual cost for that for a particular replacement policy. So every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, or every 4 years, using a discount rate of 15%. So, and we already know what the answer is, so that's all right. But let's work through how you actually come to do this. So first of all, I've just tabled all this, including the acquisition cost here, so it's $300,000, and set it up with our operating and maintenance costs each year. Note that the trade-in value is negative since we're getting money, not losing it, and we're given a rate of 15%. So the first step is to calculate the NPV of the acquisition of the entire life cycle based on each of the 4 years. So these are the calculations we're trying to do down here. The policy of replacement after 1 year, replacement after 2 years, replacement after 3, or replacement after 4. So we're going to calculate the NPV and then use that to calculate the EAC. So the NPV formula is given here, and recall that it's the NPV, well, let's just take one term. The NPV of any one of these values is equal to that value divided by 1 plus the interest rate, so in this case 1.15, all raised to the power of the number of years from now till then. So this one, to calculate the NPV of 45,000 in 2 years' time, is 45,000 divided by 1.15 squared to the power 2. And that's exactly what I've actually calculated down here in this table, is to calculate the present value of each one of these terms, so that we can then use those to calculate our net present value of the entire purchase. So the 300,000 stays the same because that's at year 0, and then each one of these, and I'll just open up the formula so you can see, is just equal to E23, which is that value there, divided by 1 plus the interest rate, or I've just typed it straight in so it wouldn't update. That's bad Excel form, so don't follow that. But 1 plus the interest rate, all raised to E21, which is the 1. And then the next one would be 45,000 divided by 1.15 raised to the 2, and so on and so on. And the trade-in values will be exactly the same, minus 190,000 divided by 1.15 raised to the 2. So to calculate the net present value for each one of these policies, we just need to see which of the present value or which of the discounted cash amounts need to count. So for the 1 year policy, all we need is the acquisition cost, 1 year of discounted operating and maintenance costs, and then a discounted trade-in value, and that's it. We just sum those up, and that's the value. For 2 years, same thing. We want the acquisition cost and the discounted amounts for the operating and maintenance for the first year and the second year, and then take away the discounted trade-in value. And then the same for the third year, the sum of those 4 plus that one, and for the 5th year, for the 4 years before we sell it again, the sum of all of our discounted operating and maintenance terms, not our gross ones, the net values, which are all based on this, and then minusing off our trade-in value. So I've just note that I've added them all together, and that I've counted the income as negatives. So you could also do them all as positives and then subtract it, but that is a little bit harder to look at. So that's it for the net present value. I've done another video on that, so hopefully it already made a bit of sense, but that's some good practice. Now the last thing to note is to calculate the EAC. There are two ways you can do it. The easiest way is in Excel, and all you do is you put in this function, which is payment. It's a standard annuity thing for finance, and it's saying, all this is saying is take the interest rate, 15%, and the number of years that this is going to be in operation, which is 1 year, and then the net present value, which is in this case $121,739.15. So that's the formula right there. That's not what you'll see when you type it into Excel. That's the values that you need to put in: the rate, the years in service, and the MPV. There are two more optional terms that you'll see on the end, and you don't need to use them to calculate this EAC value. So as you can see, by using those formulas, rate 15%, 2 years, MPV, we get the exact value we need, 130,364 with 3 years, and that's the MPV. So you may be asking yourself, will I have to calculate that in an exam? This looks like a pretty tricky function. Well, if the forum's anything to go by, Melinda's actually said if you need to calculate the EAC, you'll be using not the payment formula obviously like this, but the standard way of doing this is the MPV multiplied by a CRF. CRF is right, the capital recovery factor, and that's got a relatively odd little formula. That Melinda's got in this video here. And you can see we've got an R star, and I'm not exactly sure what this means, but I believe that if we needed to calculate EAC in an exam style format where you've got a calculation we haven't really looked at, that this CRF value would actually be given. So don't worry too much about that, but what you do need to understand is that the EAC is the MPV. You have to calculate that first and then multiply it by the CRF. And it's very well worthwhile to learn how to do the MPV because this stuff comes up all the time in finance and other things as well. So I hope that all makes sense. Feel free to ask if you need any more help on it. Otherwise, I'll see you back on the iPad in the next video.